Authentic Mutual Love is Yuta Okatsu's domain expansion. It generates a post-apocalyptic setting filled with shattered, cross-shaped monuments and countless katanas scattered throughout the area. Upon expansion, Yuta chooses one previously copied curse technique to infuse into the domain's barrier, which becomes the sure hit effect. All other stored techniques are randomly sealed into the katanas, which only Yuta can activate by touching them. The caveat: each sword breaks after one use, but with an unlimited supply, Yuta can keep attacking. He first attempted to use this domain during a showdown with Ryu Ishigori and Takako Uro, who both activated their own domains. But due to conflicting rules and interference from Kurarushi, all domains collapsed before stabilizing. Yuta finally unleashed the full extent of his domain in his critical fight against Sukuna. He embedded Angel's Extinguishment as the domain's guaranteed hit, forcing Sukuna to continuously activate Hollow Wicker Basket to nullify the effect. This act tied up half of Sukuna's mouths and arms. With Sukuna handicapped, Yuta bombarded him using his stolen techniques, pushing him to the edge, until Sukuna landed a world-cutting slash, breaking the domain. Threefold Affliction is the domain of the ancient sorcerer Yorozu. When activated, the domain manifests as an eerie, mostly vacant space dotted with floating organic masses that resemble insect brains and nerve cords. The domain's sure-hit function applies directly to anything Yorozu constructs. In her final clash with Sukuna, she activated her domain right after forging her most powerful weapon, the True Sphere. The goal was to ensure it landed a direct hit. However, she faltered before releasing her curse technique. Sukuna countered by summoning Mahoraga, whose Sword of Extermination shattered the True Sphere. While Yorozu stood frozen in disbelief, Mahoraga dealt a killing blow, collapsing her domain. Womb Profusion is the domain expansion of Kenjaku, though some believe it may have originally belonged to Kaori Itadori, whose body Kenjaku now possesses. When deployed, the domain creates a towering pillar of grotesque, cursed spirit-like faces melded together. Anyone within its radius is struck by a devastating, invisible force via its auto-hit mechanism, although the precise nature of this force remains a mystery. Like Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine, Womb Profusion lacks a physical boundary, and instead, seeps into the surrounding environment. Because the domain isn't enclosed by a barrier, it can't be easily disrupted. Kenjaku exploited Yuki Tsukumo's hesitation to deploy her own domain, expanding Womb Profusion without sealing off the space, thanks to his curse technique's built-in barrier. This barrier was immensely strong. It dissolved Yuki's domain in seconds. Even Tengen struggled to detect and dismantle it due to its undefined form. The guaranteed hit inflicted severe damage on Yuki, bombarding her with crushing gravitational force. Coffin of the Iron Fortress is the domain expansion technique used by the disaster-grade curse, Jogo. This domain recreates the heart of an erupting volcano, a sealed stone cavern with molten magma seeping through deep cracks along the walls. The intense heat radiating from the ground is so overwhelming that any average Jujutsu sorcerer would ignite instantly upon stepping inside. What makes this domain especially dangerous is its guaranteed hit feature. Jogo can manipulate the lava-filled environment to strike his opponent with a blow that simply cannot miss. Despite its deadly nature, Jogo unleashes this domain only once, during his battle against Satoru Gojo. But due to Gojo's limitless technique, the attack proves completely ineffective. Gojo quickly overrides Jogo's domain, rendering it useless. Still, that doesn't mean Coffin of the Iron Fortress is weak, not at all. For most characters in the series, it would be a one-way ticket to death. Gojo just happens to be on a whole different level. Horizon of the Captivating Skanda is the domain expansion of Dagon, another disaster-level curse. When activated, either through a hand sign or a cursed seal on his stomach, the domain brings forth a serene yet deadly beach, with palm trees on one end and an infinite ocean on the other. Within this domain, Dagon's aquatic Shikigami strike with guaranteed precision. From the target's perspective, the fish don't swim in. They instantly appear at the point of impact, making them nearly impossible to block. These creatures tear into flesh the moment they make contact. Dagon first utilized this domain during his cursed womb form, mainly using it as a hideout for the disaster curses. Its full offensive power only came to light when he fought Nyobito, Nanami, and Maki, who struggled to survive the relentless onslaught of fish until Megumi intervened. Soon after, Toji Zenin enters the domain through an exit Megumi had created, and completely dismantles Dagon, destroying the domain itself in the process. Unlimited Void is the domain expansion of Satoru Gojo, later inherited by Yuta Okotsu after he takes over Gojo's body. True to its name, it transports targets into the heart of the Limitless technique, an endless, space-like void filled with stars, swirling galaxies, and a giant black hole. Within this domain, targets are overwhelmed by an unending flood of raw information that paralyzes both their body and mind. They're forced to feel and perceive everything at once, overloading their senses to the point of complete immobility. This effect only targets those not physically touching Gojo, allowing strategic use or exploitation by his enemies. Gojo first uses Unlimited Void to completely overpower Jogo's domain. Later, during the Shibuya incident, he activates it for just 0.2 seconds, which is enough to mentally freeze a massive crowd for 6 months, without causing brain damage. In his showdown with Sukuna, Gojo reveals new capabilities, such as compressing the domain down to basketball size, or modifying the domain's outer shell to be stronger than its interior, allowing it to endure Sukuna's endless slashes. After Gojo is killed and his body is taken over through Kenjaku's technique, Yuta briefly uses the domain against the reincarnated Sukuna. Malevolent Shrine, the domain expansion of Sukuna, the King of Curses, lives up to its ominous name. It manifests a twisted battlefield centered around a misshapen Buddhist shrine, with massive, grotesque mouths forming its 4 entrances, complete with human-like tongues and teeth. This domain guarantees a hit through 2 types of ruthless slashing techniques: cleave and dismantle. Once trapped inside, everything is reduced to dust, relentlessly shredded until Sukuna ends the domain or sustains so much damage that he can no longer maintain it. Sukuna can selectively choose which slash to use: dismantle for non-living objects and cleave for opponents with cursed energy. In a display of divine control, Sukuna can activate his domain without forming a sealed barrier, a rare feat. Doing this creates a binding vow, allowing an escape route in exchange for massively increasing the domain's attack radius, up to nearly 200 meters. Sukuna first unveils this ability in his 2-finger form to eliminate a finger bearer and reclaim the cursed finger. But his true destructive power is unleashed during the Shibuya incident, where his domain wipes out entire city blocks and claims hundreds of lives. In his legendary fight against Gojo, Sukuna activates Malevolent Shrine 3 times. Here it's revealed he can also alter the domain's conditions, like narrowing its range to amplify its power. Later, after temporarily losing access to his domain, Sukuna regains it by landing multiple black flashes, although the renewed form can only last 99 seconds. Self-embodiment of perfection is the domain expansion wielded by the disaster curse, Mahito. When activated, it materializes a vast obsidian-like realm, where massive hands clasp together to resemble a blooming flower. These central hands are linked by numerous arms interlocking to form a web-like structure that encircles Mahito's opponent. This domain amplifies the power of Mahito's idol transfiguration, granting him the ability to reshape souls without needing to physically touch his target. Its debut takes place in the battle against Kento Nanami, but before Nanami can be finished off by the domain's guaranteed hit, Yuji Itadori forcibly breaches the domain from the outside. Since Mahito's domain links directly to the souls within, Yuji's sudden entry triggers a reaction from Sukuna, who lashes out at Mahito, causing the domain to collapse. Later, Mahito uses this same domain on Kokichi Muda, but Kokichi neutralizes it using Simple Domain. Eventually, after observing Satoru Gojo, Mahito learns to limit his domain's activation to just 0.2 seconds. Enough to use it briefly on Yuji and Aoi Todo without risking Sukuna's interference again. Though Mahito manages to alter Todo's arm, Todo severs it quickly before the transfiguration can spread further. Chimera Shadow Garden is the domain expansion belonging to Megumi Fushiguro. Although still unfinished, this domain floods its surroundings with viscous, dark shadows, giving Megumi advanced control over them and enabling the summoning of multiple Shikigami. Within a confined space, it transforms the entire environment into a negative-tone shadow world, trapping enemies within Megumi's shadow. To avoid sinking, anyone within the domain must reinforce their footing using cursed energy. The shadow fluid lacks resistance, buoyancy, and even oxygen. Falling into it means a seemingly endless descent. Because the domain remains incomplete, Megumi can only form it in enclosed locations, using the area itself as a substitute barrier. He first manifests it during his fight against the Finger Bearer, where he utilizes a mix of clones and Shikigami to narrowly secure victory. Later, he employs it to nullify Dagon's domain's guaranteed hit, allowing Nanami, Maki, and Nyobito to escape. In the culling game, Megumi forcibly seals off a gymnasium to trap Reggie Star within the domain. Although it still lacks a sure hit mechanic, it boosts the 10 Shadows technique to 120% of its full potential. However, Reggie cleverly uses Megumi's own shadows against him by summoning and dropping 3 cars into the domain. Since Megumi stores items inside his shadow and must bear their weight, he physically feels the burden of whatever is kept there. As of now, Megumi's fully realized domain remains unseen, leaving its true capabilities a mystery. Graveyard Domain, an unofficial name, belongs to the smallpox deity, one of the 16 designated special grade curses. This domain engulfs its victims in a graveyard situated within a dense forest. Its sure hit attack automatically traps the target in a coffin. Once captured, the curse crosses its fists, triggering a massive gravestone to crash onto the coffin, burying it deep underground. Then, a countdown from 3 begins. If the timer hits 1, the target contracts smallpox and dies. This domain makes a single appearance against Mei Mei and her brother, whose name is notoriously hard to pronounce, and frankly, not worth the effort. Though Mei Mei is sealed and buried, she escapes before the countdown finishes. Her brother, too, gets trapped, but utilizes simple domain to neutralize the effect, giving Mei Mei the perfect opportunity to strike down the smallpox deity and dissolve its domain. Deadly Sentencing is the domain expansion used by Hiromi Higuruma. Unlike most domains, this one doesn't kill. It creates a courtroom scenario where Higuruma and his opponent take on the roles of prosecutor and defendant. This domain doesn't rely on a guaranteed strike. Instead, it forces participants to abide by the specific rules of Higuruma's curse technique. Bound by a self-imposed vow, Higuruma must clearly state the rules once the domain activates. A Shikigami named Judgment presides over the proceedings, and violence is prohibited from both sides. Once inside, Judgment announces the charges, which are based on actual crimes the target might have committed. Judgment inherently knows everything about the people within, though this knowledge isn't shared with Higuruma. Each side gets one opportunity to argue. The defendant can choose to remain silent, confess, or deny the charges. The prosecutor's rebuttal is based on evidence provided by Judgment, delivered as a sealed envelope. After both statements are made, Judgment delivers a final verdict. If guilty, the defendant receives one of several unknown punishments, confiscation being the most frequent, stripping the target of their cursed technique. Once the trial ends, the punishment is instantly enforced, and the domain dissipates. However, if found guilty without a confession, the defendant is entitled to a retrial, which Judgment is bound to accept. This scenario plays out with Yuji, who is judged guilty and has his cursed energy taken away. He demands a retrial. In the second trial, Yuji is convicted for mass murder due to Sukuna's rampage during the Shibuya incident, leading to a death sentence. This judgment grants Higuruma the Executioner's Sword, a cursed weapon that annihilates anything it touches. Higuruma is later granted the sword again during the fierce showdown against Sukuna, where he uses his domain to strip Sukuna of his cursed tool and deliver another death sentence. Idle Death Gamble is the domain expansion wielded by Kinji Hikari. Its full title, Idle Death Gamble, CR Private Pure Love Train version 1/239, draws inspiration from a real-life pachinko machine and takes thematic cues from a romantic manga series. The domain's objective is simple. Land 3 matching symbols featuring characters from Private Pure Love Train. Achieving this jackpot unlocks an incredible reward: unlimited cursed energy and a fully automatic reverse curse technique that runs for exactly 4 minutes and 11 seconds, the same length as the in-universe theme song, Admiring You. During this time, Hikari's regeneration surpasses even the likes of Gojo and Sukuna. However, hitting the jackpot isn't easy. It requires syncing with the rhythm of the game and comes with a mere 1 in 239 chance of success. All the domain's rules are seamlessly transmitted into the opponent's mind through its guaranteed hit effect. This process is completely non-lethal. As compensation for its complexity, the domain's construction and cursed energy infusion are lightning fast, activating in less than 0.2 seconds. The game starts in normal mode, where everyone inside appears on a neutral stage. As combat begins, Hikari can summon 3 visual effect cues: shutter doors, reverse balls, and consecutive effects. The doors and balls serve as offensive tools, while consecutive effects are defensive, allowing sequences to rewind and undo damage. Each cue comes in green, red, or gold, with colors signifying better jackpot odds. If a rainbow effect is triggered, or if 4 consecutive effects are reinitiated, a jackpot is guaranteed. Although Hikari can choose which indicator to bring out, their actual success depends on luck. Summoning 1 or more of these indicators advances the game into a Richi scenario, which reveals 2 of the 3 needed symbols. There are 4 Richi scenarios, each offering varying jackpot probabilities. The final train Richi, for instance, has a success rate exceeding 80%. Hikari demonstrated superior control over this domain in battles against Charles Bernard and Hajime Kashimo, showing that he can hit jackpots far more frequently than probability suggests. Time Cell Moon Palace is Naoya Zenin's domain expansion. Upon activation, it blankets the area in pitch-black emptiness, aside from floating particles and the domain's central stage. This stage features a grotesque path made of flesh that leads directly to a massive eye behind Naoya. The domain's sure hit effect functions by injecting strips of animated film into the opponent's neck. Once inside, anyone who moves must conform to the 24 frames per second pace of projection sorcery. Failing to follow this frame rate causes the target's body to erupt in a flurry of gruesome injuries with every motion. This domain sharpens the accuracy of Naoya's curse technique to a cellular level. It freezes individual cells, which results in countless microlacerations, immobilizing the target entirely. If someone tries to move forcefully, they risk losing limbs altogether. Naoya unleashed this domain for the first time in his vengeful spirit form, while fighting Makizenin, Hagane Daido, and Rokujishi Miyo. He successfully trapped Daido and Miyo, inserting 2 strips of animated film into their necks. Because there were no immediate effects, the two assumed the domain had failed. But once they tried to move, their bodies were torn apart by unseen slashes. However, the domain failed to detect Maki, who lacks cursed energy, making her immune to its auto-targeting. She used this advantage to move freely and eliminate Naoya from behind. Many Jujutsu Kaisen fans still don't fully grasp how Itadori Yuji's domain expansion actually functions. To begin with, Yuji needs a solid command over barrier techniques, something he learned during the time skip from none other than Kusakabe. This knowledge became the foundation for Yuji's very first domain expansion, which he unleashed in his battle against Sukuna. One of the clear effects of his domain is the enhancement of his physical capabilities. We've seen this in recent chapters, where Yuji repeatedly managed to overpower Sukuna within the domain's boundaries. What sets Yuji's domain apart is its ever-shifting landscape. Unlike typical domains that have a fixed structure, Yuji's jumps from one setting to another, moments pulled straight from his memories. How this even works remains a mystery. Over the course of several chapters, Yuji has dragged Sukuna all across Japan, from the south to the north, without any clear explanation. The most reasonable theory? Yuji is navigating through his own mind, and the domain's scenery reflects his inner world and recollections. And that's every domain expansion in Jujutsu Kaisen, each one more insane than the last. Which one would you want to use? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe for more JJK breakdowns. See you in the next one.